Hi guys, this is a miniature landscape painting from Maxim Grunin, from me at Maxim Grunin Art. Let's take a look at the whole process from scratch. This is roughly 4.5 by 6 inches piece of wooden canvas. It's primed. It's just a primed little board, and it's sitting on a tabletop, and I have a palette on one side and a little disposal tub for wiping palette knife or brushes, and there's toilet paper in that tub on another side of the screen. And I prep a bunch of these boards, these little canvases. I prime them, and then I do palette knife abstraction, create inspiring, lively, uneven kind of surface, like a wall of a cave, like not pure white, but you see there's gray purple, gray blue, some green, whatever was on the palette, and I just smear it over with a palette knife so that there is interesting, inspiring, for me personally, surface to start building my image into. And then this piece is a landscape. So in my experience, I like selecting my favorite photos of the outdoors. These could be my own pictures that I've taken, or uh, reference from all over the place. And it is not a copy of a photograph by any means. A photograph is just a reference, like a dialogue between me and the subject and the image, like a starting point for the meandering, the conversation, the dialogue that I will be taking. And then I often just start setting up trees in dark, like black plus white, some blue, red, purples, different types of darker uh, tone. Tone is light and dark information, and it also has some color properties. But the main thing is that I start them off with the shadow, with the dark, so that there is a contrast between the background and the subjects. Once I set up a bunch of trees or objects that I think are trees, these are not really trees. This is just a painted surface of on a board. This is paint. Uh, that's it's funny to me how when I talk about my work, I think that I'm painting trees, but the truth is I'm just placing shapes of light and dark with different color information, and I am adjusting them little by little with mm, uh, a painting language, like contrast or brush strokes that move on different angles to increase the 3D property of an object. Sorry for the detour. So once I set up a bunch of these objects within rectangle, within the picture space, I go away from the reference altogether. I just close the image and already refer to my inner imagination, so to my own categories of balance, where here's an example. The items, the trees in the front, I'm keeping them darker and more larger, more prominent, and I am slowly pushing the elements, different trees far back to become lighter, grayed out, more cold in color properties. And cold colors are the ones that have blue in them. And the more blue there is within the color, the further back it seems to be, especially when it's mixed with white or tinted. And so once I do that, there is the depth forming. So those couple of trees far back and the bright light between them start to feel by looking at them. So when I'm looking at this, my eye is telling me that they are less visible far away, smaller, lighter, colder in color properties. And then I continue moving around the picture plane. This is a kind of a balancing act where I am working on the relationship between one area to another throughout the whole picture. So I am making sure that the background is a little bit lighter, that there is a kind of a relating between one area of paint to another, and there is a cohesive, like understandable quality to it. Right now I'm separating the tree in the front with the fork from a tree behind it by lightening the back object a little bit more. And then I noticed that it is too light and it's starting to compete with the background. So I bring back slightly darker purple gray. Now I am cutting into the objects that were loosely placed, those trees on the left, with background lighter information to further define their form, their appearance. And I'm also giving these tree trunks or these objects lighter background information, and I'm adjusting them to the foliage of the leaves above them so that there is correlation, so that my eye can travel throughout the image and have a balanced, satisfying impression of what I'm looking at. If something jumps out less balanced, if a tree trunk is all black and just dark, then I will bring in more complexity, more color complexity into it. I will break it up with different variations of brown, purple, and blue mixed into it in this case. Little by little, I am inching towards the brightest highlight somewhere at the top, close to the middle of the picture, where the light behind the trees is kind of coming in to the scene. And then I am moving those light properties of white, a mixture of white and yellow, a mixture of light green, putting those lighter sections in furthermore in more areas. And I am wanting to add color complexity. I'm taking previously simply filled in areas on the bottom where the ground is, and I'm adding color to it. Here's the shape of a bush, just a cluster of leaves that's in the foreground, and now I am giving it some different color mid-tone properties. There was at first kind of a silhouette of clusters of foliage and leaves. And now the top areas where the light hits them is getting a little bit of color. In this case, reddish brown. Red is placed right beside dark green, and as we know, red and green are a complementary color pair, so being side by side will increase their three-dimensional and colorfulness properties. So those kind of rusty looking brushstrokes that describe some of the leaves go and become very visible and very 3D over a dark green. That's like a tool set that I'm using. I'm using color theory. Now, use of complementary colors. I really like that fact that it's possible to study visual art and it's possible to use kind of gathering intelligence about what colors can do optically, and they complement each other or they increase each other's vibrancy, or they, if mixed together, they gray cancel each other out. So little by little I followed through with the process of going from general big and kind of immediate shapes, general darks, little by little moving up to midtones, and introduced some highlights. Now I am introducing color complexity within previously fairly simple kind of grayish general areas. And I'm also introducing detail complexity by highlighting certain areas, by reshaping certain objects, by adding smaller elements. There is quite a mix I like using of large, chunky, prominent elements interspersed by mid-size brush strokes and objects, and also a good amount of fine features such as tiny details. These tiny details are not necessarily drawn out shapes of branches and leaves. They, to me, I'm treating it more like they are tiny abstract smears, strokes, marks, and then I also evaluate the picture in between the recordings, and I find areas that are not quite balanced, not quite dancing or working well together with other areas. And how I get those points is by being able to recognize what areas of the picture I like, what worked well, how I wanted it to work, or even more, it turned out successful and pleasing to the eye for me, so I can learn from what I've been able to do well and I liked it and it turned out well. Then I transfer that modality, that approach to other areas. Example, I noticed that I kind of neglected the rightmost side of the picture where my hand is, and so I'm bringing color information from the left and the middle of the picture in towards the right, and I also added kind of a little leafy form on the bottom corner there. And right at the end of the project, it's time to place little highlights, the smallest, most maybe well chosen, colorful, and highlighted areas could be addressed at this point. I say it like this, I'm bumping it up a little bit so that it sticks out, so that the area sticks out a little more, and where there is flatness to it, like that olivey green leaves and gray and different colors underneath. Maybe there could be a bump that's been highlighted by natural light, and I am then directing a little bit of a highlight onto these areas. And then again, take a look around. Maybe a little more orangey, yellowy, ochre, warm color could be placed in more areas. And there it is. Here's a look at some of the details of the painting. I kept it fairly loose and painterly, and not too overdrawn, over realistic, so expressive. Yeah, thanks for watching, thanks for tuning in. Maybe you can press like or join the channel. See you soon.